All right, we are recording and we are live. I would like to welcome our audience to today's webinar, Learn to Build a Simple, Effective Sales System that delivers a consistent flow of leads and new clients. Isn't that what we all want as business owners, right? Forrest, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself and Solve Sales.
Sure. Yeah, so my name's Forrest Dombrow, obviously. I've been a serial entrepreneur for about 15, 16 years, heavy dose of digital marketing for the last decade, conversion rate optimization, SEO. I've started and sold 4 companies, some of those for profit, some of them for a loss. So I've seen it all. I've also worked with probably 200 different clients as a marketing manager in a sales role. So I've seen just about every industry you can imagine, and from a marketing standpoint, what works and what doesn't. And that's what we're going to be talking about today.
Cool. Tell me real quick about this picture.
That was at my son's birthday this past Sunday. We did literally 6 hours of bumper cars, laser tag, climbing walls, and I'm still exhausted 3 days later.
Awesome. My name is Chris Ralph. I'm the founder and president of Boulder SEO Marketing. I'm originally from Switzerland, moved here in 96 for 6 months. I'm still here. I love it. Colorado is an awesome place, amazing beer, hiking, biking. I got about 2 decades in digital marketing. We offer, I'm sort of like transferring to become a SEO training company primarily. We do consulting, website audits, do a lot of international multilingual SEO these days, content marketing, social media, pay-per-click, and all that good stuff. And when I don't work, then I try to be up in the mountains. I think that was last year. Did quite a few 14ers this year with my girlfriend. All right. So the good news, I think you're going to learn quite a bit. I actually attended one of Forrest's trainings in Denver. It was a meetup. I learned a ton in terms of sales strategies. So I think you'll walk away with a lot of information. It's 45 minutes. We're not going to be able to cover everything, right? But it'll give you hopefully some good ideas that you can implement right away. Um, Digital marketing, you're going to talk, Forrest, you're going to talk about digital marketing as well. This is primarily what we do here at Boulder SEO Marketing. There are so many components when it comes to digital or marketing in general. Primarily here at Boulder SEO Marketing, we focus on search engine optimization. Two big components of SEO are content and social media. And if you combine a winning digital marketing strategy with what Forrest is going to tell you, then I'm going to show you some results in just a second here. And dang, I think I just gave it away. Forrest, the best place to hide a dead body.
I have no idea. I'm not sure I want to know, but let's see.
Well, it's page number 2 of Google, right? If you're not in actually now the top 3, 4, 5 organic search listings on page number 1, you're not gonna get those clicks. So this is an actual customer email. Hey, Chris, we're busier than a one-legged man on a tricycle. Why? We took them from basically 314 organic Google search visits per month to about 3,600 in about 3 years. There we go. And there was actually a direct correlation in increase in sales. This is what it looked before. This is basically what it looked after. It's an e-commerce site, about 900% increase in sales directly related to Google organic search traffic. SEO is a long-term effort, but it pays off long-term. So that said, Forrest, I'm going to put you in the driver's seat, and you're going to tell us how to implement a really good sales strategy that's going to make people a lot of money. So, Forrest, I'm making you the presenter right now.
Okay. Are you seeing the title slide
I
now?
do.
All right, great. Let's jump in. As Chris mentioned, I've got quite a bit of content. I'm going to go relatively rapidly, but this will be recorded. And there's something hidden in the case study that Chris was just showing. He showed all these great results, but there's something in there that we didn't talk about that if missing, it's not going to work. And that's really what we're going to get at today. And so Solve Sales, a lot of people think the name Solve Sales means sales training, traditional sales related things, and it does. But really what we do is work with companies that are not getting enough sales. It might be a sales skill or process issue, or it might be a marketing issue. So don't take the word or the name of my company specifically to only mean sort of traditional sales training. We are about generating business for people, i.e. sales, regardless of what it takes. Now, if you are a business owner and you don't have enough sales, you might feel like this guy. And most of our clients are stressed out about something because it's not working. And they typically fall into several different problem areas. Sometimes they have multiple of the ones we're going to look at. The first one is simply a volume issue. They either don't have enough leads or enough sales from a volume standpoint. And of course, if you don't have that, if the pipeline's dry, the lead generation pipeline or the sales pipeline, you're going to be dying of thirst as a business. The next thing I see very commonly is maybe people are getting leads, but they're the wrong kind, right? The people don't have enough money, or there's just some mismatch between the types of leads they're attracting. Another issue is a lot of business owners, let's take an attorney, a doctor, a software developer. They're great at what they do, their craft, but they maybe have very little idea of what they're supposed to be doing for marketing and sales because it's not their profession. And there's so many options out there today, it can be confusing, and they don't know which way to go. And so what do? They'll hire experts, the social media expert, the SEO expert. But another issue is it's tough to tell who is actually an expert these days, because sometimes people attend a couple of webinars like this, read a couple of blog posts, pop up a template website, and they're a social media expert. And so it's kind of hard to tell who is the real deal. Now, with the information you're going to learn today, you'll be able to better assess who can really help you and who's just selling you a bill of goods. The other problem I see all the time is just simply overwhelm. Again, maybe sales and marketing isn't the business owner's main job. They do have some clients, and they're so busy dealing with those clients or working with their employees, they can't even get around to fixing sales and marketing. And the last two related problems are sometimes people just hate sales, right? They think it's slimy. They think they don't want to do it. They don't want to be a used car salesman. And the other related issue is maybe they don't hate sales. They're willing to do it, but they have some fears around sales. They're not sure how to do it or what to say, those kinds of things. So those are sort of the common problems that we solve as a company and that we're going to teach you today how to think about in a more productive manner. Now, to kind of start to address a couple of those problems straight away in terms of hating selling, everything we're going to talk about, everything I do with my clients and teach them is all based on this quote and this mindset of serving. If you offer a valuable product or service, you don't have to sell anything. You're just helping people. And that's the theme that runs throughout everything we're going to talk about today. So let's get right into the meat and potatoes and how we can solve some of those problems that we just went through. So I want you to imagine for a minute that you're going to take a trip from New York to LA and you decide to go by car. And you wake up on Monday morning, you're going to make your trip, go outside, and your car is missing wheels. Obviously, you're not going anywhere, right? The point here is that you need to take a systematic approach to generating leads and sales, not a parts approach. And all too often what I see with clients is they take a parts approach. And we're going to dive into that in detail in a few minutes. So everybody knows what a system is, but I think it's useful to have a quick definition to set the stage for what's to come. So it's an apparatus that has several connected parts, each with a definite function and together performing a particular task. And that's what you need as a business to generate a consistent flow of leads and sales. You have to have all the parts that you need. They have to be connected to each other and all sort of moving in the same direction of generating those leads and sales. And all too often, that's just not the case. And so this is a sales system. It's very, very basic, just to illustrate the point. So you have to do some sort of advertising or marketing or gain awareness one way or the other. I want to take a half a step back for a second. This presentation is designed for companies that sell services, but almost everything we're going to talk about today also applies if you're e-commerce or your retail store or anything like that. So in all cases, you have to do some awareness, and then you have to send people somewhere. It might be a website, it might be a retail store, and then you have some sort of sales process, which could be a long, involved B2B sales process, or it could be as simple as someone coming up to the counter at your store or checking out on your website and buying an item. But the point here is that if you have a great website and no advertising, you're not going anywhere, just like with the car example. And so you have to have all the bits and pieces working together. Now, the more subtle insight that most people miss is that your sales and marketing system, like a car, is a system within systems. So for example, your website is not one thing. It is also itself made up of multiple parts that need to work together. So here we have design, development, content. Again, this is a simplified example. But if you have amazing design, but there was something technically wrong with your site and it didn't work when people were clicking around, or maybe it looked great and worked well, but the content was poorly written, it's not going to work. It's not going to generate those leads. Again, just like a car, the engine is not a solid state piece of metal. It is itself a system with multiple parts. And so you really need to have this systematic mindset if you're going to be successful with any form of marketing. Now, typically what happens, if people even know they need to take a systematic approach, which quite often is not the case, then what happens is they're either missing pieces, like for example, maybe they're doing Google AdWords, but they don't have good landing pages, things like that. Or things are broken or poorly configured. Maybe they have a great website and they're doing SEO, but their content is terrible, things like that. So again, missing pieces, broken parts. Another one I see very often when people go out and like hire, let's say, a social media expert, is that the efforts are disconnected from sort of the larger system. And to give you a specific example of why experts often fail, so this guy's a tire specialist, right? Kind of like a social media expert or SEO expert. If you go in there and you ask him for tires, he will sell them to you. He won't ask you if you have a car to connect them to, or if you know how to connect them to your car, or if your engine's working well, because he doesn't do that. He's a specialist. And we see this all the time with, like, you hire the social media person, and what you end up buying is a certain number of posts, a certain number of fans, things of that nature, a certain number of clicks or traffic, but it's rarely completely connected to your final goal, which is ultimately leads and sales. And so what I like to say is don't buy likes unless you have a complete system, or someone on your team or the vendor that you're hiring really does take a systematic approach and will ask you about all the bits and pieces and parts you need to make whatever particular tactic they might be executing actually work. And so let's take the example a little bit further. Legos, which we're all familiar with, is essentially a system, a building system. We get those Legos home, our kids get them home, and we have grand visions of, building a well-designed machine. And this is kind of the same thing that happens with our sales and marketing. We get out there, we start spending some money, spending some time, and we think it's going to be this finely tuned machine that delivers leads and sales on a consistent basis. But often what happens is we end up with a clunker like this. And the reason is because we're not exactly sure what we're supposed to be doing all the time or how all the things fit together. So you're not faced with a pile of Legos, but you're faced with a pile of marketing options, right? There's a million ways you can market your business these days, and new ones coming out what seems like weekly, right? So with Legos, what they do is they give you a picture of what you're building, so you know what the end product looks like. And they also give you a step-by-step assembly list so you can fit the pieces together. And that's really what we're ultimately talking about today. I'm going to show you a system and what it looks like at the end so that you can actually build one and not just end up with a bunch of random parts. Now, when you're building a system, you can build something complicated like the Death Star here, or you can build something simple and effective. And I coach most businesses to keep it simple. Unless you're a giant corporation with millions of dollars and teams of people to implement things, keep it simple. Right, so here is the simple sales system for service businesses, and as I mentioned, most of it applies to any kind of business. And we're going to go through each of these in turn so you can understand what you really need to make your sales and marketing machine really hum. So the first one is a population and pain, and that is about this equation here. So really getting to know who you're targeting. This is sort of marketing 101, but really understanding the problems that you solve as a company, whether you're offering a service or a product, and who the specific group of people is. And I want to key in on the word specific, right? Because you've all heard of niching and getting more specific, and it's really important. And to illustrate with an example, let's say you're skiing and you have a knee injury and you need to go to a doctor and you have an option, right? You can go to one of these two doctors. On the surface, they're basically exactly the same, except one specializes in knee injuries from skiing. So all else being equal, you're going to pick the specialist, right? And because a specialist tends to win over the generalist unless we have other criteria to judge them by. Now, this is happening every day online when you go to do a Google search and you're looking at the ads, and a lot of them, if you do a Google search in competitive industries, you often see, the top paid search ads and organic results all kind of saying the same thing and promising the same thing. So specialization, as you're thinking about the population you're targeting, can really help differentiate you in a very simple, easy way. So here's my focus: the owners of professional service businesses that are struggling to acquire enough clients. That's somewhat specific, but I could actually go more specific. And the point here is the narrower you go, the easier your sales will flow. So I could, although I don't, say I focus exclusively on the owners of family law firms that are struggling to acquire new clients. Or I could execute specific marketing campaigns with that message and that focus and have several of them. The point is specializing is really important, very powerful. Now, the next part of the equation is the problem, right? So the worse something hurts, right? If I have a flat tire, I need to get it fixed now. If I have the flu, I need help now. If I'm kind of thinking about getting some new clothes in the future, maybe I need them, but it's not like a flat tire, right? And so the point here is I've created this little market power matrix. So as you're identifying, getting to know your population in pain, you want to think about this little matrix. So the more specific the group you've identified, the narrower, and the higher the pain, excuse me, the higher the motivation will be to, excuse me, sorry, I just had to get a drink of water there. The more specific and the more painful the problem, the easier your marketing will work, whatever tactic it is that you're using. So the next step, excuse me, in the system, excuse, I'm gonna have to pause for a second.
No worries. It's definitely getting drier here in Colorado. Take a sip of water or something.
Yeah, I've got some water. I just got something stuck in my throat. I apologize.
Oh no.
All right, so the viral solution. So, most marketing experts that you work with, they'll talk to you about a unique value proposition, because ultimately, when you're marketing, again, whether you're doing SEO or whatever, you first got to get people to pick you. And so, marketing experts will talk about unique value. What is the one or two main reasons that you're different and better, such that people should pick you over your competitors? Very important, for sure. But I like to take things in this system a step further. Now, this slide here is talking about referrals, organic referrals. Everybody loves referrals. Everybody knows referrals are great. But I don't think people truly understand how important and powerful referrals are. And so the incidence of consideration is the concept of if you look at all media, any kind of advertising you can do, online, offline, doesn't matter. When people see those ads or interact with that advertising, 1.5% of the time will it cause them to consider your product or service or business. Versus if a friend or someone they trust refers you, they'll consider you 80% of the time. That means a referral is over 5,000% more effective at getting people to even just consider you. The incidence of acceptance is kind of like the conversion rate. So again, all media, if people learn about you through advertising, marketing, 0.2% of the time will they actually buy because of it, whereas they'll buy 35% of the time, or 17,000% more often when someone recommends it. So referrals are really, really important. And I coach my clients to strive to go beyond just basic unique value and actually try and deliberately create more referrals. Now, what I'm talking about is what I call the referral reflex. I'm not talking about when someone asks a friend, hey, can you recommend a good doctor in the area? I'm talking about when someone buys your product or service and has such an amazing experience, they're physically compelled to tell people about it. They can't help themselves. They were so amazed. And what causes that behavior? So for years, I've been asking this question and doing research into what causes people to have that sort of reaction and why do people refer things to others. And there's a behavioral statistics studies based on actual consumer behavior. So this is not focus groups of people saying what they might do. This is what people actually do in real buying situations. And what they found in the study is that there's one underlying driver of this referral reflex or referral behavior. And it's not what everybody thinks it is. It's not money and it's not altruism. It is to look good. So generally speaking, we refer things to others because we think it'll make us look good in some way. It's not that monetary incentives can't work, and in some cases they do, but this natural or organic type of referral is really based on looking good. And so the study asked, how do we determine if something will make us look good or not, such that we'll talk about it to our friends or not? And what they found is that there's 4 factors that have to be present in certain measures for that behavior to trigger and for you to go truly viral. And so we're going to go over the 4 factors right now. The first one is novelty. So nobody refers anything to anybody if they already know about it. For example, you wouldn't, mention McDonald's to your friend because everybody already knows about McDonald's. There's nothing new or novel about it. Same thing with something like Facebook. Now, if these companies do something new, come out with something new, you might mention that, but you're not going to refer McDonald's itself because there's no novelty there. The next one is utility. So I, as a person making a referral, have to believe that the person I'm telling about it will have some use for the product or service, right? So you wouldn't refer a lawn care service to your friend that lives in an apartment in the city. They have no use for it. So again, these are the 4 factors that we're sort of weighing in the background subconsciously when we decide whether to make a recommendation or not. And what there is to do is just to start to build them into your product or service. We'll teach a whole other course on how to do that, but I want to give you a sketch of it here today. So the next one is dependability. It's about consistency. It doesn't mean perfection. It just means I have to have confidence that if I tell my friend to go check this out, it's going to be as I told them it would be. So if it's a restaurant, that the service will be, the same as it was when I was there. I have to believe that that's the case. Using McDonald's again as an example, they are very high on dependability. They're not premium or anything, but they're consistently mediocre. Same thing with something like Walmart, right? So it's not about, premium per se, but it's about being consistent in whatever it is that you deliver. And the 4th factor is economy, which means that you have to offer some economic advantage over other options in order for me to feel like it's worth mentioning this to my friend such that I'll look good. Now, economy could mean lower price, but it definitely doesn't have to. Let's say there's a dry cleaners in your town that's 10 miles away from your house and one opens up that's 1 mile away from your house. You'll probably mention that to your neighbor because there's 9 miles of driving time economy, right? So it could be saving time, could be saving money, but there has to be some economic advantage that you're kind of communicating. So what there is to do, again, is you build these things into your business, and we go back to our market power matrix, and now we overlay the viral product or service, and you have a real winning formula to really move the needle in your sales and marketing system. And so to illustrate this one last time, what your job is with these referral factors is to build them in. So on the left, we have what I call polishing a turd, right? That's where a business offers some product or service that is really worthless. It's not only undifferentiated, it's really bad. Now, most companies I interact with are not on that level. They're kind of in the middle, right? They offer something that's pretty similar to everybody else out there, right? It's the real estate broker that's a real estate broker. There's nothing really unique. He's just like every other real estate broker, or the software company that has mostly the same features as the other software company, right? So on the right, what we have is, let's imagine that you really had a legitimate cure for cancer that actually worked and had limited side effects. At that point, you wouldn't need a Facebook page or a blog. You basically just need a cash register, right? So, because people are just going to come stampeding to your door to get that cure. Um, the point here is you can use the factors we just went over to move yourself, maybe not all the way to cure for cancer level, but at least away from the brown package level where you just seem like everybody else. And that makes everything much easier because the first two parts of the simple sales system here, defining that population and coming up with your viral solution, which is essentially branding and product development. If you nail those first two, you almost barely need the other three. I started Saul Sales with no website, no email address, and no logo or anything. People just started hiring me because I started talking about the first two, the pain that I saw, which was around sales, and I had some unique elements to my programs. Now, of course, if you want to go beyond just having a few people hire you and have an actual system, you need basic brand assets, which is the next step. Um, so the thing here is, we have a target market, we have a solution, but we have to put a face to it. We have to get a look and a feel, right, and a message to communicate. Now, there's so many options out there, right? And I talk to people all the time. Do I need a Facebook page? Should I be doing Twitter? What about Snapchat? It's just overwhelming for people, especially again if you're a small or medium business with a limited budget and limited team members. So what I coach people on is forget the bells and whistles, okay? Stick to the basics. You just need a few things done well is going to take you a lot further than trying to do everything, all the hot new marketing tactics of the week. So what do most businesses need? Again, this is geared a little bit towards service businesses, but a great name that's easy to spell, a matching domain name and email so you come across as professional. To some of you, this might be very basic, but I meet people all the time that just don't have this stuff down, and it holds them back when they get to the SEO stage, for example. Great logo, business cards, website, sales assets. These things, you can get these things so cheap with templates these days and sites like Fiverr and 99 Designs and all these kinds of things. So there's no reason to not look top notch, at least with some of these basic assets. So now we get to the fourth section of the system, which is the client attraction tactics. Now we're actually going to talk about the marketing, the SEO, the social media, whatever else you might do offline as well. And so just like everything else, you have a lot of options. You have a lot on your plate usually. Maybe marketing's not your only job during the day. And as a small business or smaller business, you have limited budget and resources. So what I tell people is pick 2 to 3 and execute well. If you want to do SEO and social media, great. If you want to do, SEO and speaking or networking or trade shows, whatever the tactics are, just pick 2 to 3 and execute well. And how do you do that? The first step is you got to pick the right tactics, right? SEO, as Chris shows you, can be super powerful, but not if people that aren't looking for you online for some reason. If you're in an industry where there's not a lot of search traffic, then SEO might not be the right tactic for you. This is about understanding where that population in pain is that you identified. Where do they hang out? Where do they go to look for the types of products and services that you offer? That'll start to help you figure out what the right tactics for you might be. Now, once you've picked the right tactics, you need to assign the right resources. I see people fall down here all the time. This is the issue where they say, I'm going to do SEO, and after 3 months, they're complaining it's not working yet because they didn't pay attention to their vendor who told them it's going to take at least 6 months, right? So, and you need to have the right skill. So a lot of times people are trying to do certain things in-house, like manage their Google AdWords when it's not their full-time job and they don't really know what they're doing. You're just setting yourself up for failure with these tactics if you don't assign the proper skill, whether in-house or externally through a vendor, set the right amount of time that it's going to take to do it. If it takes 2 hours a day, do you have 2 hours a day? That kind of thing. And then the proper budget, right? So if you want to do SEO, it costs money and time. If you want to do advertising on Google, you have to have the proper budget to make it work with the click costs and things of that nature. We talked about time, but I want you to also understand you need to set the right time frame and frequency. So if you're going to blog, for example, as one of your tactics, how often do you have to blog, and how long do you have to do it for before you can determine whether it's working or not? It's definitely not one post every 3 months. If you're going to do networking even as a tactic, how often are you going to go out and go networking, and how many months are you going to do it for before you determine whether it's working or not? So you got to get the skill and the budget right, but you also got to give the tactic enough time and frequency to actually have a chance of working. The next thing is to be consistent. I see this all the time. People tell me, "Oh, I get a lot of leads when I go out and I speak at events, but I haven't spoken in 3 months." Or AdWords was working pretty good, but we turned it off because I got busy. You can't do that. You have to be consistent with these things, or else you kind of are constantly trying to restart the engine and things get rusty. And consistency is important with your marketing tactics.
And actually, Forrest, if I can jump in real quick, I mean, I couldn't agree
Yeah.
more with you. So I do a 2 day training, and basically all we do is teach people a system that they can execute over, a year, a couple of years. And, we share all of our templates, everything that they need just to be organized and put something in place that's
Yep.
consistent, that follows a task, follows the next one, etc. So yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with you.
Yeah, you just triggered a memory of mine. Prior to Saul Sales, I owned a digital marketing agency, which I sold to my partners. And when I took over sales and business development for the agency, we didn't have a budget. I had a $50 a month budget, which was essentially for parking at networking events. um, and my whole marketing plan was this was literally my marketing plan. I'm going to network and speak. Those are my two tactics. Network at least 4 times a month and speak at least once a month. And the key, I often did more than four in one, but I believe a big part of the key to my success was the fact that I never ever, for literally years, did less than that. I was totally consistent. And, did I go to events that were a waste of time at the beginning? Yeah. So it's not like it always worked like gangbusters, but the fact that I was consistent also allowed me to optimize what I was doing, which is true for offline tactics like speaking or networking, but it's also true for something like AdWords or SEO. If you're not consistent with it, you'd never get enough data to learn what's working and what's not, and you never get to the optimization phase to make something work better. So consistency is just super important on multiple levels.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
And just
right.
one more thing. You and I spoke about this before, but basically, when I started my company 4 years ago, I spoke at meetups, like small events. And now, 4 years later, I do keynotes at, some of the biggest conferences in the world. I speak in front of hundreds, if not thousands of people, and that drives so much business. So yeah, it's
Yeah,
consistency.
that's exactly what happened to me. Exactly. I
Yeah.
definitely found. I mean, I literally was at meetup groups where there was like 5 people talking about the movie The Secret. And then flash forward, I spoke in front of 600 people at
Yeah.
a big conference in San Francisco recently, and it pays dividends over time because then you get those referrals kicking in that we talked about, and it starts to
Yeah.
sort of feedback through your system. So the last step here is the simple sales process, and this is where we get into the actual sales part of things, the more traditional sales aspects. And so I want to kind of revisit some of the problems we talked about at the beginning in that service theme. If you've done a really good job with the first few parts of the system here, you've got that great population in pain, you really understand what it is they're wrestling with, and you've created a viral solution, or at least a unique and valuable solution at the very least, and you've got some good brand assets. At this point, you are now prepared to serve people that are thirsty, right? The guy with the flat tire, the person that's sick, the person whose software is not working for them, whatever pain that they're having. And if you get to that point, it's about making an invitation, right? So if someone's dying of thirst and you happen to have a solution like a glass of iced tea, you don't have to sell them anything. You literally just have to say, "Would you like some iced tea?" And they will grab it out of your hand. And of course, I'm dramatizing the example, but that's really what you're going for. That's that cure for cancer, that on the other side of the spectrum, where you're offering something so useful to a group of people that really wants it that you barely have to sell. You certainly don't have to trick anybody. It's all about being of service and making invitations. So once you kind of start thinking about your sales, you want to think about the process, right? How many steps will it take? What do you need to do? A lot of times people kind of take I meet someone and I immediately ask them to marry me. Want to buy, want to buy. sometimes that might be appropriate in like maybe a retail setting, but a lot of times in business to business or online, there's steps people need to take. That's why you see so much marketing automation. And when you get into your offline sales process, you want to really be really clear about the steps that you need to go through and write them down, right? If you're going to be training anybody else in your company, you need to teach them what the steps are, what's going to be happening, and then tracking this stuff so you can see where you're falling down your process. So this is just a quick example of sort of a typical B2B, say, selling consulting services or something like that. You're going to qualify people, have a couple of meetings, and get a proposal out, et cetera. But it is important to kind of write this down because then you can start to build assets for each part of the process. You can track where people are falling out, et cetera. So don't sort of wing it. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's called a simple sales process, but do document it. Do take a little bit of time to put some thought and structure to it. And then when you're actually having conversations with people, remember we're serving and we're providing solutions and invitations. So build rapport and trust. Ask questions. Really, ultimately, sales, from my mindset, is about listening. It's about asking good questions and listening. And if you ask good questions and really listen to people, they'll basically tell you exactly how to sell them. And then once they tell you their pain points and you've kind of dug out what's important to them, present tailored solutions, support them in making a decision, and then just simply invite them to be a client. A lot of times you hear the word closing, you got to close them. I actually do use that. I like that because not because I want to be slimy, but I think a lot of times people that aren't professional salespeople, they can kind of get a little weak at the end. So again, you don't have to close or use cheesy techniques, but just make the invitation. Would you like the iced tea right now? For example. So don't forget to close, but remember a close in this system is really just about making a clear invitation and accepting a yes or a no and moving on. So the last section of the system is, in a certain sense, optional, the tracking piece. You have to have on some measure, all 5 of the main parts. But like a car, you could technically drive your car and go from New York to LA without having a dashboard, but it certainly makes your ride a lot more efficient, and you can make better decisions and stay away from problems. So you'll want to build some tracking into your sales and marketing system, and essentially you need 3 types of tracking systems. You need tactical tracking. So if you're doing email marketing and it's one of your tactics, there might be tracking and reporting right within that tactic, or something like Google AdWords has tracking built right in. But then you'll also want to have tracking for your other assets, like your website, landing pages, things like that, so you can track the effectiveness and optimize those. And then also sales tracking. We actually have built an entire sales tracking system that if anybody's interested in, we can get them a link to that as well. But that's about understanding where your leads are coming from and what is being effective throughout those steps of your sales process. And you really need to pay attention to all 3 of them. So I want to just finish up here today with one little quick case study and then an example. So Transitions Career Coaching was a client of mine probably 10 years ago. And Nancy is a career coach and life coach, and she, with my help, applied all the steps in the system that we talked about. We renamed her company, we rebuilt her website, we did SEO, we did paid search, etc. And because she implemented everything with tweaking over time and remained consistent with it, she has received approximately 50 leads per month every month for a decade. Most coaches are struggling, they're dying of thirst, right? So this is just one quick example of how the system worked for someone. Now the last part here, I just made this example up, but it just shows you how anybody that, if you're just like a chiropractor, a real estate broker, a software company, anything that is somewhat competitive or there's a lot of you out there, here's how you can quickly apply the system as an example. So let's say you're a chiropractor. The first thing you want to do is pick a specific population in pain, as we talked about. So a chiropractor could say, hey, I'm going to focus on construction workers and their bad backs. So I got a lot more specific, a lot more painful than just I'm a chiropractor that helps human beings, right? Now the viral solution, step 2. So most chiropractors have an office and you got to go there. What if this person came up with a mobile chiropractic sort of vehicle of some sort and could go visit the construction workers at the site. That would be something unique and something worth talking about to the other people on the job site, right? Who also have back problems. So you've got the utility that we talked about. It's unique and novel. Assuming you do a good job and the mobile vehicle looks nice, you'll have that dependability. And obviously, there's economic advantage there where you don't have to drive to go see somebody. So you can see a quick example of how you can really start stimulating that viral referral conversation. Then we need to get to step three, the basic assets. So they could come up with a clever name like Denver Back Builders, a chiropractor for construction workers, a nice matching domain name, build out a few basic web assets, and they're going to immediately look a million times better than your average I'm a chiropractor.com website with no specialization, no viral elements. Then they'd have to pick their client attraction tactics, so they could do networking, meeting with the owners of and foremen at construction sites, attending industry events. So this is where we get into that picking the tactics, picking the right skill, time, frequency, putting numbers to things. How often are you going to do it? How much money? Online advertising or SEO, those types of tactics, same deal. Pick two or three, start executing. As you can imagine, someone that went through a little process like this, again, is going to be far easier, far more effective for them to generate leads and sales because they've got a nice, tight system that really addresses problems for people out in the market. Now, so you're aware that you need to take a systematic approach. You're aware that you have the different parts you need to build in. And you basically have three options for building your system. You can do it yourself. You can take this information and start building it. You can hire experts like Chris or myself or other companies to help you put that together. Or you can get a coach to kind of help you do it yourself with some coaching. Those are kind of your three basic options. I do have a bonus for you today, and then we're going to stop for Q&A. So I have created a guide that tells you a little bit more about this sales system and a training video. It's totally free. It also comes with 12 follow-up emails that teach you additional sales tricks and tactics that are highly actionable. So I definitely encourage you to go to solvesales.com, click on the free Learn a Simple Sales System green button at the top, just fill out the form, and you'll get all that stuff instantly, and then the emails will start coming. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Chris, and then we can have some Q&A.
Awesome. Hey, thanks a lot, Forrest. Quick question for you. I'm going to make myself the presenter again, share our contact information. I know you're a busy guy. What's your availability, and what would potentially a engagement with you look like?
Yeah, so right now I have a couple of open coaching slots. I'm booked on all my consulting right now. But if someone wanted some coaching, weekly coaching, to help build out a system or work on one particular part of the system, that's something they can contact me at. You can just shoot me an email at that contact information you've got there, and we'll get you taken care of.
All right, awesome. Actually, Forrest, can you see the question slide?
I can.
Okay, awesome. So if you have any questions, I know we're like right at around 45. If you have any questions, feel free to use the Q&A or chat interface to submit them. Doesn't look like we have any questions right now. Well, I recorded the session. Let me make sure that's still recording here. So I'll be sending an email to all registrants. I'll include Forrest's contact information. Hey, Forrest, I'd like to thank you. Maybe if you have one more tip, one thing that our audience should implement right away, what would be like your most valuable tip that you would want to give away?
Yeah, my passion and my most valuable tip is focus on that viral factor. Think about those factors, and even if you can just start adding any kind of novelty, utility, dependability, that is going to make everything else. Everybody wants to go right to the tactics, and I really encourage you to think about those viral elements, and think about product development and branding and messaging as your first step. Then think tactics second. And the shortcut to do that, again, is specialization. There's lots of other ways to build in those factors and become viral, but if you're kind of stumped, just get more specialized with either your target market or the service you offer, and that's kind of a shortcut to making everything work much better.
Yeah. And just one last word, before we actually take on new clients, we make them fill out, it's like a 10, 12 page onboarding document where they have to, let us know about their buyer or like their target audience. It's basically sort of like a marketing plan. And you'd be surprised with how many companies actually don't have anything in writing about their business. Who's the target audience? Where do they hang out, et cetera, et cetera. So this often is like an eye opener to many of our potential customers.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised because I see that every day.
I know. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, Forrest, thanks again. That was awesome. I'll stop the recording here in a second. And, thanks again to our audience for your interest. You'll be receiving an email with the link to the recording, some information, and we hope to talk to you soon again. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks a lot, Forrest.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.